Hello and welcome back to the Celtic Way. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the X and Twitter handle. I'm joined by Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley on the X and Twitter handle. He's standing outside Celtic Park. Celtic 2, Rangers 3, live full-time reaction as Brendan Rodgers' team blow on Derby Day again. We'll get into that in a second, Ryan, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. The Celtic Way is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow and the surrounding areas, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today, and we thank them for their sponsorship of the broadcast. Ryan, Celtic 2, Rangers 3, back-to-back derby defeats for Brendan Rodgers. I'm not even going to attempt to dress that one up, Ryan. Dreadful.
Yeah, they got what they deserved, to be
Correct.
honest with you, which was absolutely nothing. They played for probably a grand total of 20, 25 minutes today, I would say.
If that.
But if that, yeah, there was a period in the second half where I thought they were really going to take the initiative, especially when you could clearly see that Rangers were tired because of their midweek excursions in Europe. I thought they were going to take that. They're going to take that as a bit of a motivation and go forward. They get back, it's 2 each. They got a warning from that chance that Luke McCowan got the block in a couple of minutes before. They don't heed the warning and they concede to a cracking goal from Igaman, but really poor defending from everybody involved. Too many players had off days today for Celtic to get anything less for anything more than a defeat. I've got no complaints whatsoever with the scoreline. It could have been worse in the first half with the way that Celtic were playing. They were abject, to be honest, today. And 20 minutes doesn't dress that up. And the fact that they got back, they should have got back. They should have went on and won that game at 2 each. But it was dreadful management of the game from Celtic.
Champions-elect go on and win that game, Ryan. Pains me to say this, but the better team won today. We knew what kind of game plan Rangers would have, and they came with that. And Celtic, despite the manager saying they would be up for the demands of this game, they weren't. That's 3 games in a row, Ryan. Rangers have scored 3 times against Celtic.
Yep.
And Celtic won in penalty kicks in the League Cup final at Hampden. And as you said there, too many were off it. Every goal preventable, Ryan. First one, Raskin steps off Schlupp. Second one, Raskin steps off Engels and cushions it into Diomande. And then the last one, Cameron Carter-Vickers lets the ball bounce, the long ball, and Igimani gets the strike away. You know, every one of them preventable, but weren't prevented, Ryan. And sadly, Celtic paid a heavy penalty and lost the match.
Yep, absolutely. And it's just very, very disappointing because the league is a foregone conclusion at this point. I know the gap has been shortened ever so slightly to 13 points. In the grand scheme of things, it'll be a successful season for Celtic, but this is a blip. These performances against Rangers, and it has been a blip. It's been a blip for 3 games. They got away with it at Hampden through penalties. Penalties are a lottery. They maybe got away with that penalty decision on Scales that wasn't given in that first game. They got exactly what they deserved at Ibrox, which was an abject performance. And for me, this one's more disappointing because it's at home. You've got to have that home advantage. Celtic from the off just did not impose themselves on the game whatsoever. You would think it was them that was playing on Thursday night and not Rangers, because quite simply, Rangers and Barry Ferguson's side, the manager and the players, they wanted it more than Celtic on the day. Maybe subconsciously that was the case. Maybe in Celtic's heads they wanted it, but they didn't show it on the park today. It was passive today, and it can't be passive in a Glasgow derby.
Lack of energy, I thought, today, Ryan. And at 2-0, I thought Rangers were well worthy of that lead at half-time. Could have been even more. Kasper Schmeichel's distribution today was utterly appalling. It just went AWOL.
It starts from the back, Tony. It starts from the back.
Yeah. The one silver lining in the first half in the back of the pack was Mike Nawrocki. I'm going to big up him. He was excellent. He did his job. And Jota looked good when he got on the ball. Nicholas Kuhn, no running away from it. He's been a passenger for weeks now, and he will certainly not be crowned the Scottish Footballer of the Year. His form has gone off a cliff. Engels was off it today. McCowan was off it, bar a spell when he threaded a lovely ball through to Hatate, who scores a lovely goal. But Ryan, you just can't have that, as you say. I'm kind of lost for words as to why a team came to Celtic Park and looked hungry and sharper despite playing 120 minutes of football on Thursday night. And the manager said that they'd be up for it, the physical demands of the game. Just too many again off it, Ryan. You can't be off it.
Lightning strikes twice, because this happened in 2022 under Ange Postecoglou. Rangers just came off the back of a triumphant win against RB Leipzig, and they played 120 minutes, granted, against Celtic, and they played well, and they deserved to win on that day as well. I don't know if it's a hunger issue with Celtic, in terms of they're so close to the finishing line that they've taken their foot off the gas, or took their foot off the gas. That shouldn't be the case. If anything, it should be the opposite, and they should
never be the case.
Desperate to go right over it. They don't want them to splutter over the line here. They want them to get through and win it in style. And the way that they could have started that would be by beating Rangers today and really putting down a marker. You've got to remember, Rangers played on Thursday night as well. Celtic had a free week to prepare. I don't know what they were training yesterday, but Austin Trusty pulls up. It's not granted. Mike Nawrocki came in and was arguably man of the match for Celtic in that game, just by the consequence of that game and the way it went.
By default.
I thought, but just almost by default. Yeah, I thought there was, for 20 minutes it was I was doing the player ratings immediately after the game, and it's difficult to write them midway through the game because the game was going up and down. You had such a bad first half, and then you had that 20 minutes, which was so good. And then, I'm not going to say it. It's weird calling it a sucker punch, because I don't think that Celtic necessarily deserved anything from the game, given the way that they conceded that third goal. But, for a good 15, 20, 25 minutes, they were on top. There was great chances. Luke McCowan had a shot that just went back past the post that he should have scored. Rio Hatati had a couple of shots from distance. Schlupp was getting involved. Engels was getting involved. He had a better second half after a largely passive and quiet first half. But too many off days, and if you give yourself a mountain to climb, going down 2-0 at half time, you give yourself a mountain to climb. You have to put so much into it, and I think once they got those 2 goals, there was almost as if a push to go and get that third. They left the back door open, and unfortunately Rangers came in and got that sucker punch. Was that a smash and grab? A wee bit at the end, given
at the end it was
going, but
not over the piece.
There's the warning, not over the piece, no, but the warning signs were there. That chance that McCowan blocked off of, I think it was Dessers, right about a couple of minutes before. That was the warning signal. They didn't heed that warning, and they get stung because of it. But yeah, a very, very disappointing day. Really,
I'll tell you what,
a really bitter one today as well.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of pill to swallow. Yeah, big time. I tell you what, I noticed today, they missed their captain big time today.
Without a doubt.
I mean, if you don't know what the captain brings to this football team, then I can't help you. But that midfield, especially in that first half, you said they were passive. I would go as far as to say they were non-existent, Ryan. They were non-existent. They were second to everything. And the passing, for me, was utterly, utterly diabolical. I mean, diabolical is, for want of a better word, because at this minute in time, I'm trying to articulate my thoughts. But it was atrocious, the amount of times that they gave up cheap possession and were second to the ball by a team who were just hungry, Ryan, and had told us the way they were going to play, they were going to get in our faces. Celtic 3 times have tried to play through Rangers' press in the last 3 derby matches. 3 times it hasn't worked, because they've been hustled, they've been harried off their stride, and 3 times Rangers have scored 3 goals against you. It tells you something. You have to mix it up. You have to change it a bit. You have to do something a bit different, because not only that, I think from this result as well, and maybe rightly or wrongly, they'll get a conceit of themselves and they'll think they've got Rodgers' number now. So something has to give here, Ryan, in terms of the manager as well, and the way he plays Rangers and the tactics that we adopt against them, because it's not worked the last 3 games. Got away with it in the League Cup final and almost got away with it today by dragging yourself back into the contest with that 20 minutes, and having done the hard part, they forget to do the world-class basics, Ryan, and defend a long ball. A bread and butter long ball. Granted, the finish is sensational, but you have to tip your hat off to you. Hamza Agimani, that's a strike and a half. To quote Chris Sutton, that ball stayed hit. It did. It was a cracking strike. I'm not taking anything away from that. And I'm being magnanimous as well because I do think the better team over the piece won that football match.
Listen,
and deserved to.
If you score 3 goals away from home, you probably deserve to win the game. That's just the. At Celtic pride themselves on having a good defence at home, a great defensive record at home. Apart from a couple of games ago, they were hardly conceding anything at home. Even still, their record will be great at the end of the season with conceded goals. They allowed 3 goals to go in today. They only scored 2 of their own. That's question. Some of that responsibility has to go to the manager today. The fact that 3 games, the same thing has happened. That the midfield being overrun. I think that as much as Celtic missed McGregor today, I think going forward they probably do need a number 6. They need somebody that's going to break up the game. As much as I talk about the fact that I want to see Engels in that position, he wasn't great today. He wasn't. We needed a big performance. Celtic needed a big performance from Arne Engels today. Luke McCowan and Rio Tate. I don't think they got it. Yeah. Whereas for Rangers, I think Rangers got their big performers today from Diamandi, Raskin, etc. Barron. I mean, I'm not
Raskin especially. And you can argue the toss about this all you want, but Raskin justified why he's in the Belgian international squad ahead of Engels on the evidence today. On the evidence today, right? Yeah, on the evidence today. So I thought Raskin was excellent for Rangers. I have to say that he really was, and
it was a good header for the opening goal. But Jeffrey Schlupp was just not track his man whatsoever. Completely lost.
Jeffrey Schlupp was sleeping. I think you would say, Ryan.
Yeah,
Schlupp was sleeping, but
you expect better from a player that's operated in the Premier League, and he's going to have that lobbied against him because he's performed at the highest level in football in England in the Premier League. So you'd expect better from a player like him. But obviously that wasn't the case. But he had pretty much an off day. He did get better in the second half, as did a couple of players. But, for that 25-minute period. But, yeah, it's the first sort of bad performance from Schlupp, I would say, today.
And ironically, when McCowan and Engels, were tuned together, he scored a cracking goal to equalise 2 each, and you think you would get the impetus from that and go on and win the match. And I know Rangers scored with probably their only shot at goal in the second half. But, they'd done enough in the first half. But Celtic, again, did the hard part by dragging themselves back in to the contest. But I always felt that there was a twist in it, Ryan, but I didn't know who for.
Yeah. I always thought there was going to be a winner on the day, even when it was 2 each. I thought it was going to be a winner on the day, one way or the other. Celtic probably should have equalised right at the end from Alistair Johnston.
Yeah.
But you could go as far to say that was one of Alistair Johnston's worst games in a Celtic jersey, if not his worst. When he's good, he's very good. But when he's bad, my goodness, you know about it. And you know when he's having an off day. And that strike at the end, or that touch at the end, just typified his whole game. To be honest, he had a real shocker today. A player you would expect more from. He wasn't the only one. I'm not going to single out players today. There's too many that had off days. If one player had an off day and the other had good games, and Celtic would have won this game. Yes. The reason why they didn't win this game is because 5, 6, 7, 8 of them had off days collectively at the same time. Unfortunately, sometimes you can get away with it at Celtic against lesser teams, not against your greatest rivals who will be up for it and who will be buoyed by a good result in Europe in midweek.
Yeah.
And that was the case.
The silver lining is, of course, Celtic still remain 13 points ahead. They still need to win 3 more games, Ryan, don't they, to win the title? So that's just pushes it back a bit further before they wrap up their 55th league title. But I think the overwhelming feeling today is just disappointment, Ryan. And that lack of energy, and why the last 2 games against Rangers there's been a lack of energy.
It's like a burst ball, Tony, or a burst balloon or something like that, because I felt like there was quite a bit of buzz going into this game. You could feel it walking to the game, walking to Celtic Park, you could hear it in the crowd. And then, conceding so early on, the tempo has already been set, the narrative has already been set. It's up to Celtic to change that. Then they go 2-0 down. and you're midway through the first half, Celtic have got a mountain to climb in the game. And despite overcoming that mountain, they then fell off the mountain at the end. They got to the top, they got to the summit, and then they fell off right at the end. So, it's not been a great day whatsoever.
No,
for
I get that it's not the end of the world. You just want to see them play better because they can play better.
But it's a pattern, Tony, and the pattern.
No, I know that's
one game we can put it down to a blip.
Yeah.
But the past 3 games, Celtic have not been at their best against Rangers.
Just about to say that. That's what's alarming, Ryan. It's the trends that are developing from the last 3 matches against Rangers, and so the players and the manager need to carry the can for that, and also, as I say, touched upon it, but I mean, the most important dimension and person missing for me today was Callum McGregor.
Without a doubt.
Because
Celtic leadership in the middle of, if anything else, he's a great
leadership, and
great player for Celtic.
The way he just directs traffic and controls the game and slows it down and plays others in and just anchors that team. He's the fulcrum of that team, the heartbeat of that team. And that's what Celtic were missing today. They were missing leaders, especially in that first half. And you could say, Rangers went about their task with gusto. You could, and if you're going to be critical, you could say at times maybe agriculturally, but they made sure Celtic midfield trio knew they were in a game. Got no time, no space. Couldn't execute the simplest of passes. Whereas whenever McGregor plays, he always finds room, doesn't he, and space to manoeuvre. That just didn't happen for Engels, Hatate, McCown, especially in that first half. And it just seemed to sap the legs out of them, didn't it? It just drained them of energy and clarity of thought at times for me.
I've got to say they missed McGregor with what he does, particularly with referees as well. And I'm not going to go down this route. I'm not, because you get accused of being of sour grapes if you lose the game and you go on at the referee. But the referee was atrocious today, especially in the first half. If McGregor's on the park, he's in the referee's ear. He'll be saying, "Look, 1, 2, 3." You had Barden that was consistently, or just constant fouling. Diamandi was constantly fouling, kicking the ball away, taking ages to take goal kicks as well. I'm not going to go down that route. I'm going to stop there because I don't want it to be sour grapes. But it was a poor refereeing performance, and it didn't help the flow of the game, and it only suited Rangers. That's
why I used the phrase that Rangers were agricultural, right?
Without a doubt, yeah.
Euphemistically, right? You know what I mean by that, right? Join the dots, as I always say. And again, the man in the middle doesn't help you. But see, for me, that I expected that, and I expected the referee to act the way he did as well. And the game would be kind of stop-start, and there would be sorts of fouls and stuff like that. So when you expect that, you've got to do something to counteract that. And also, when you have the ball, your passing's got to be on point, Ryan. Yeah. Celtic's passing was, it was dreadful. I can't underemphasise that. Diabolical.
Yeah, it was. It was really bad and uncontested as well. Sometimes, yes, Rangers were playing a press, and the press was working for them. And that's another team that pressed Celtic, and it's worked in terms of getting something out of them, because they don't like being harassed and harried and rushed into doing things. They like things in their own way. So he wants to feel a wee bit of adversity. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes a Celtic team can crumble ever so slightly. They crumbled today, especially in the first half. They get hit with a late shot, a late great strike from Hamza Agaman. But at the same time, if you concede 3 goals, you don't deserve to win the game. You don't deserve anything from the game. They've got to pride themselves on defensive stability, and they were defensively unstable today.
Yeah. In the context of the second half, it was a smash and grab, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of territorially and all that, But I think over the piece, then fine. But but when Hamza Agaman comes on, he can score. He's got quick feet. Just do the basics. Watch him.
Blood and thunder with him.
Balls coming out the sky. You just don't give him time to weigh that up, because that's what he'll do. And again, I think everybody just felt that it was going to fall into place when Celtic got it back to 2 each. That Celtic were in the ascendant saying they were going to win the match. They didn't.
yeah, they didn't. It's just that I don't know about you, Tony. It's been a bit of it was an exhausting game to be a part of and an exhausting game to watch because you had the low of the initial poor performance, and then they get you up for it with the high, and then the low again. So you've been through like a roller coaster of emotions. I can only imagine what it was like to play in. You seen the likes of McCowan and Arnott Engels trying to get the crowd up and G'd up. There was a bit of fan trouble before the game, which meant that some fans couldn't attend the game. That definitely had an impact on the atmosphere in and around the ground because the Green Brigade were absent. They didn't get into the stadium today. There was talk about no tifo before the game. There was no Green Brigade due to problems before the game. And that can have an effect. It was only the boys in the right hand corner that were in there in terms of making the atmosphere. And say what you want about them, say what you want about the politics behind them. They make a lot of noise, and they're that 12 man. Without that, apart from when Celtic score, sometimes the noise levels aren't there. It's a Glasgow derby. Yes, there's a bit more of a heightened atmosphere. You need that constant noise coming from that one section, and it wasn't there today. Not making excuses. Celtic were the poorer team. They deserved to get beat today, but it was just a disappointing day all in all.
And also, Ryan, I think what's highlighted today as well, that this lauded strength and depth that we have is maybe not as good as we think. 2 or 3 injuries just knocks it awry and skews it. So today we couldn't call on the likes of Bernardo or Trusty or Callum McGregor or so Scales for that matter as well. And you looked at that bench, and with the exception of Yang, who came on and made his presence felt. So did Ida, to be fair, but that was basically it. Yang and Ida were the only 2 you were going to bring on to turn that game around, weren't you?
Inadvertently, Rodgers made 2 subs. And only made 2 subs in the game, so that shows you that he can't fully trust the players on the bench at that particular moment to come on and change the game.
I think Ferguson brought on 3, didn't he, at one point, and tried to win the match, and Igaman has won the match. He brought on the match winner. Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm looking for that similar sort of input, and I know he was feeding off the scraps. Yang did really well when he came on. I thought there was one pass in the lead up to that equaliser. It was absolutely brilliant. It's only he that can play that sort of pass. He's got that sort of vision in his head, and he can see the game in a good way. For me personally, I'd start him in the next game off the back of that performance, and because of Kuhn's performance, whose form has, as you quite rightly said, went off a cliff completely. That whole right side was so poor, ineffective in the first half. Yang came on and looked a threat. Maeda, he was feeding off the scraps as well, but he got his goal and deservedly so. It was a great header from him. But going forward, I see a player that's desperate to make an impact in Yang, and I want to see that effort rewarded with more opportunities, particularly from the start. That coupled with the fact that I don't know if Kuhn's justifying his selection at this point in time. He was good against Hibs. He was good in parts against Hibs, but he was completely passive today. And I just think Yang deserves to be rewarded because I thought he did well when he came on, and Rangers looked like they were genuinely struggling with dealing with him when he was on the ball and trying to make things happen. There was a bit of a buzz when he got on the ball and was in possession, tried to make things happen. So I'd like to see more of him going forward from now until the end of the season. I want to see if there's a player there for next season. Let's find out. Let's give him a run of games and see if he's up to the task. But I thought he impressed again. As for Ida, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make goals on his own. He's going to have to be provided. He's not one of these players that's going to make a goal. You're going to have to. You're going to have to put it on a plate for him. He's that sort of striker. He had nothing apart from a couple of touches here or there. Not that he was dreadful or anything like that, but he was starved of any delivery or any service.
Over 1,000 people joining us, Ryan. 1,080. I think it peaked at 1,100 at one point. So thanks, guys. We can feel our disappointment, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. I always say that it's result dependent, and today is hopefully a temporary blip in the grand design. It won't stop or prevent Celtic from wrapping up the title, but I think the Celtic supporters expected better today, and they didn't get it. For the third derby in a row, Celtic have been not great against Rangers, and that's the worrying and developing trend that we're talking about. That kind of press that Rangers of Celtic can't play through it on that high press, and they seem to have. You have to say in the past 2 matches, they've certainly got Rodgers' number on that.
9 goals conceded in 3 games.
Yeah, I see that at the top of the programme. Yeah, so yeah. And
especially with the perceived gap between the two sides. Look at the league table, there's 13 points. Celtic should not be conceding 9 goals against the team. I know that you don't have a divine right to go and win every football match. I'm not saying that. But you can't be conceding 9 goals. You can't be conceding 3 goals at home against a team that had played on Thursday night. You've got to be using that to your advantage. You've got to be hitting them early, and really pushing the tempo in the game. People are still happy despite getting beat on the day. You can hear it in the background. But yeah, it won't deter from what has been a fantastic season. But it's maybe something to think about. Hopefully, the common saying is these things come in threes. Hopefully that's 3 bad performances and they don't make it 4 and they get their own back at Ibrox towards the end of the season. But yeah, that's something that they've got to work out and really mastermind in terms of the next time they play against Rangers, because Rangers will improve next season. It's up to Celtic to improve too, and really maintain that gap, that points gap between the two sides, because they're an inconsistent side, but they've had Celtic's number in the past 3 games.
Yeah,
so it's about time Celtic change that number, change it altogether.
Positives for me today, Ryan, were Jota and, as I say, already said, Nawrocki. And obviously Maida's goal coming at a crucial time. He gets you back into the game. Wasn't Maida's greatest game either, but that's still, 27 for the season for Maida?
Yeah. Do he works so hard that you can give him a pass for some of his on-ball stuff not being great. But I thought he did get more effective. He became more effective when he played out wide rather than playing through the middle, because there was a great chance just before half time where he got a header that looked goal bound. It was going in the back of the net, but it was a great clearance. Don't know exactly who
Dujon Sterling, I think it was.
Yeah, but it was a tremendous clearance from Dujon Sterling. It was goal bound. People around me that were celebrating already, so that was how close it was. But fortunately, it wasn't to be. I just think if Celtic got a goal before half time in that game, it would have changed it.
Yes,
something to really plant a seed of doubt.
Yeah, the goal after half time planted that seed of doubt, Ryan, and it did change it, and the momentum swung Celtic's way. But as I say, if your champions are like, you go on and you win that football match,
without doubt,
you pummel them. And I thought at that point Rangers looked tired, but they got
55, 60 minutes in.
I thought they looked tired, and then they just retreated and then slowed the game down, and then the changes gave them impetus, because I think it was who dragged a shot past the goals at Connor Barron when Dessers went through, and then Connor Barron choked it into the ground.
Yep.
So they could have gone 3-2 up before Igimani scored. So, you know what I mean? And we spoke about it, that the warning sign was there after that. That was the one you say, right, need to be solid here, because they could, grab all 3 points with another attack of that ilk. And sure enough, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, just a bitterly disappointing day, Ryan. A day that started off with so much optimism and promise has ended in a sour note. Like you said, a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an up and down day from when the team came out, and you want to feel confident going into the game. But the captain's the focal point of the football club. He's the guy he's the leader in the team. So if you don't have that leader, and regardless if his form's been sketchy as of late, you want Cal McGregor in that starting lineup. He's the first name that you want named in that midfield, because he sets the standards. He also sets the standards and keeps other factors in the game on check, which weren't kept on the day. But the fact that he wasn't there, they gave him the best possible chance of trying to play the game. Freak injuries happen. Both players had calf injuries. Austin Trusty, to be fair to Mike Nawrocki, played okay. But just a disappointing day all in all, Tony.
Yeah, 1,100 of us feel the same way, Ryan. I think we'll draw a veil and a line under it at that. Celtic are still 13 points ahead. but lost 3-2 to Rangers. Iggy Manny scoring the winner with 3 minutes left on the clock. Celtic coming back from 2-0 down as well, but not enough. We shall end it there, guys. We say thanks to S1 Jobs for the sponsorship of the broadcast. And yes, we shall reconvene. Time to go away and lick our wounds, as they say, Ryan. Take our dumps and all that kind of stuff. But we'll do it as professionally and honestly and humbly as possible. But yeah, Celtic 2, Rangers 3, disappointing derby day, Ryan.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. There'll be the dissection of the game, but at the same time, metaphorically, you want to draw a line under it and just focus on the next game. The fact there's only one game a week makes you, you're gonna be thinking about it for the next couple of days. That's what bragging rights do. Rangers got the bragging rights this time around. Just got to lick our wounds and get ready for the next one. Get ready for the next game.
Indeed. Thank you guys for joining us. I say 1,100 people. Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, and we'll see you all soon. We'll be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to dissect it all over again. Take it easy, guys. All the best.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.